Checking the distributor location on this truck here. Gonna reset it from scratch. So the first thing we want to do is want to get ourselves a long bar and a socket to turn the bolt on the front of the crankshaft. Mine is 1.25 inches. And as we take out, we're gonna take out number 1 spark plug, and we're gonna turn this thing around until we can feel the compression stroke. We want to line up one of them marks there with top dead center on the timing tab, and that is on the compression stroke. When we have however you want to do that, I just got somebody put a finger in the hole there. We turn it over until it presses, or the air leaks past and tells it's on compression stroke. Next, we want to make sure that our distributor shaft down there with the gear that contacts onto the camshaft, that little slot, you want that facing at about 11 o'clock position. And then if that's not facing at 11 o'clock position, you use a long screwdriver, flathead screwdriver, or you can use the shaft for the rotor itself to turn that clockwise until you get it into the right position. So when we take this distributor and we set it in place, where my finger and my thumb are, those are going to be at the 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock position. And so our rotor, we will want to be facing till it lines up with our cylinder number 1 mark right here. That's where the end of the rotor is going to line up with this. And down at the bottom of the shaft, that slot should be at, again, that 11 o'clock position for the slot that's in the gear inside the engine. Here we are with the distributor in place, and we've loosely got our rotor lined up with that number 1 cylinder mark. And you can see that those 2 tabs, that those are where the bolts on the distributor cap thread into. Those are at the 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock position. This is our starting point here. We want to line everything up. You want to line that rotor up to that mark as best you can, and then we can clamp down the distributor in place. Here's the bracket here, and there's going to be a 5/16 bolt that goes in. Hopefully you could see that hole down there. So this will go around the shaft of the distributor and hold it down. And then do yourself a solid. Make sure that you got that bolt as clean and easy to put in by hand, because you're going to need to screw it in by hand and then get a small wrench to tighten it up. Here we are with the small 1/2-inch wrench that I'm using to fit in there and get at that. And we cleaned up the threads really good on this bolt, and then put some anti-seize on there, so anytime you got to take it apart, it's going to come apart easy. You want it to be able to come apart finger tight, because it's in a real tight spot, hard to get at. So as we reach in here, this rotor is going to be fit into that slot into the gear, so it is not going to move. You're going to adjust it with the body of the distributor, and you want to line up this mark here to the rotor. And I'll show you a trick that I used, because it's hard to see in here if it's lined up, depending on what angle you're looking from. The phone actually does help, kind of, if you're looking at it through the phone. That could be an aid, but I'll show you what I did. So I'm just using the flat of a screwdriver here, and the idea is that flat is going to rest square with the face of the slot in the distributor body there. And then I'm going to use my other hand. I'm going to try and turn this rotor so that it lines up with the shaft of the screwdriver. And I'm thinking that's the best I can come up with to get it as close as possible. If I hadn't mentioned it before, if you want to turn that gear down in there to line it up to the 11 o'clock position, you can use this rotor. You just leave this distributor loose with the bracket off down there, and you're just using the rotor and the tooth in the bottom there to turn that gear. It'll it'll lift up the gear and it'll turn it. You can keep turning it clockwise until you get it where you need it. And also too, this is going to indicate where it needs to be as well. So if you don't want to use a flathead screwdriver, you can use the rotor shaft here to turn that gear. Once you got that lined up where you want it, you use your little wrench, fit it down in there on that bolt, and tighten it down so don't move. And then next will be to plug in the plug there, and that should be over here. This is our plug to plug in our I think that's the camshaft sensor on this black plastic portion. And then we'll put the cap on, and then the plug wires. So we tighten down the cap. In my case, it ends up being a 7mm socket, or you can use a Phillips screwdriver. There's a Phillips head on the end, and then we've plugged in our cam sensor there, or camshaft pickup. Plug that in, and then now we'll just put the wires back on. And so what I've done is I've numbered on the cap there for the wires and the direction rotation, and just for reference. And then we'll put the wires on there. So we've got all our plug wires back on, and I've numbered the tops, so it would make it easier for me so I don't get them mixed up, and double check, make sure everything's all good. And then now we'll put in our number 1 spark plug here, and hook up the wire and start it up. Got number 1 spark plug and wire back on there. We're gonna try and start it up here before we put the air cleaner and everything back on, and hopefully she starts. That's that.